Hello, my name is Dietmar Doerschlag. I'm a senior business consultant with Valiantys, and I welcome you to this video where I'm going to demonstrate how you can use Jira Automation to calculate numeric risk scores for IT change control. Now let me ask you a beginning question. Can Jira do math? That's a question I always ask myself. Is it possible to use Jira to perform math calculations? And the answer is yes, you can. And I'm going to demonstrate this to you in this video. So let's talk about a specific use case. This video talks about IT change control. We are dealing obviously with very important change control pieces in the IT service management domain, submitting, assessing, reviewing, approving various type of IT changes and assessing the risk of those changes before they get approved for implementation. And very often this is done through risk questionnaires. And what I'm going to demonstrate in this solution today is I'm going to show you how you can use Jira Automation to calculate a numeric risk score automatically in the background via Jira Automation. And then we use the outcome from that numeric calculation, calculating that risk score, to then set the overall change risk for that CR, which of course will very much drive various elements of the change implementation plan that you have in place, such as the rollback plan, etc., etc. So this is the use case, very common, and I'm going to demonstrate to you now how this actually works. Now I'm here in a demonstration environment and I am on a portal and I am submitting a request for change. This is a normal change, not an emergency change, it's a normal change. I'm entering on this intake form the summary. We're deploying a software package for December. It addresses various vulnerabilities in a particular application related to inventory and pricing. The impact of this is pretty significant. It's high urgency. And for now, please watch this value. I'm setting a low risk value. This is sort of a preliminary risk score. And we're doing this as a repair. I'm now submitting that change request into my IT service management project. It now creates a unique change record. ITS M is my work item key 10. And here is the CR, deployment of package 2025-12-17. This is the deployment package that we want to deploy. Now I'm working through the change. I'm going to assign the change to myself, and the change is currently in review. So I created a 2-tab screen, and I'm now looking at the risk assessment screen. And here I defined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, 5 simple questions that we're using to assess the risk of that change. Did the system, service, or configuration item involved in this change in your experience a major incident in the past 8 weeks? If the answer to this is yes, we want to attach a higher risk score, right, to this. If the answer is no, the risk score should be lower. The next question is the system service currently subject of a major problem or task force? If the answer is yes, it is, then of course the risk score would be higher. If that is not the case, the risk score would be lower. Is there high availability redundancy available? If the answer is yes, the risk score with HA available should be lower. If the answer is no, there's no redundancy available, the risk score should be higher. Is there a critical service affected by your change? If the answer is yes, you're deploying a change to a critical service. Inherently, that would be a higher risk score, right? Because you're affecting a very critical service. If it's not that much a critical service, the risk score would be lower. And lastly, have you experienced an unsuccessful change to this same system, service, or CI in the past 8 weeks? And if this is the case, then the answer would be yes. If the answer is yes, the risk score would be higher. So what I'm now doing is I'm simply, as the risk submitter, I'm assessing their change. And of course, I have to provide evidence why I am scoring it as such. So let's answer the first question. I'm answering the first question with a yes. I'm going to pause for a moment. And in the background now, you see that that value, that risk score, automatically updated to a numeric value of 15. It happened automatically via a Jira automation, which I'm going to demonstrate in a moment. Now, if the next answer to the next question is also answered with a yes, now let's see what the risk score does. It now recalculates the risk score and it sets the risk score to a new numeric value of 30. So 15 and 15 is now 30. Is there high availability redundancy? If I say yes, I said this should be a lower risk score. It should now include, it recalculates the risk, and it should now be a new risk score of 15 plus 15 plus 10 equals 40. So you see that Jira really can do math. It's adding the individual risk scores for each of the answers that I'm giving, yes or no, up to a total running risk score. I have two more questions. This question is there, have you experienced an unsuccessful change? If I say, um, so is there critical service affected by a change? Answer that also with a yes. It resets the risk score and it keeps calculating. It's now 55. And finally, if I answer the last question with a no, it should reset the risk score to 65, if I'm not mistaken in my math that I created. And it is 65. So you see that Jira really does numeric calculation. Yes, it adds the running totals up. Now, if you were to go in and update any of those values from yes to no, it will recalculate the risk score. That's the first part of what I wanted to show you. The second part is now let's use that risk score and see with the risk score of 65 what the change risk should be. So you see that the change risk is currently set to low. That was the value that I put in as a preliminary value on the CR submission. Now I'm mainly triggering an automation and I say set the change risk from the risk score. So in other words, use that numeric value of 65 to now determine what the change risk should be. Now let's run this automation. This is a so-called mainly triggered automation. And I'm running this automation and it is now recalculating that change risk to a new value of, let's refresh the screen. Let's go back into the risk assessment. It has now recalculated the value. It just took a few seconds for the automation to kick in to a new change risk value of high. So now let's look at what elements came together that we made this actually to work. So as always in Jira, when you configure, and this next part of this video is now really more geared towards the system administrators, those who create the solutions that I just showed you. As always in Jira, when you configure a solution like that, it involves multiple configuration elements that have to come together. So here we have, first and foremost, we have various fields, field configurations that also, of course, live on screens. So in this particular case, I created a screen, which is the CR create screen, right? The create work item operation. And in that screen, I created a second tab. And in this tab, I defined those values. So each of those fields, which is a single select yes, no value field, had to be created. And then the risk score, of course, is a numeric value field. And the change risk is a single select critical, high, medium, low change risk single select field. So it was important to clearly define what fields we need, put the fields on the screen and make sure that all the fields have the proper field configurations. The next element is, of course, we had to create workflows, workflow schemes. We had to create the request types. All of that had to come together. Now, what I'm sure you are very interested in, how does the automation actually work? So we have two automations here. The first automation that I wanted to show you is the risk score calculation. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a value change trigger, and I'm essentially watching those 5 fields that I have on that particular screen, right? Those are risk questionnaire fields. I'm watching those fields, and I'm saying when the value on any of those fields changes, and then I'm putting a condition that this should only apply for those issue types, or work item types. What am I doing? I'm then editing a field, and the field that I'm adding is the risk score field, right? The risk score is what I'm watching. And then I'm doing if-else statements. So if the first question, the first field has a value of yes, then I'm updating the risk score, and I'm using this syntax here. I'm giving it a value of 15, right? If the value on the same field is a no, then I'm giving the risk score an additional 10 points. And then I'm just running through all of those if-else statements, essentially going through all the fields. If the next field has a value of yes, then the risk score would be adding 15. If it has a value of no, then the risk score would be adding 10. So this is how you calculate a running total. Just want to also point out here that we need to have an action here after each if-else statement to refetch the data. This is essentially where the data gets reset and then recalculates from scratch. So that's the first automation. The second automation is quite simple. That's where we set the change risk from the risk score. So in this case, you saw that I'm mainly triggering the change, right? I'm mainly running it. And I say if the risk score is greater or equal than a numeric value of 75, then I'm changing the risk field, the change risk field, to a value of critical. If else it is between 50 and 74, then I'm changing the risk to high. If it's between 30 and 49, then I'm setting the risk to medium. And finally, if it is below 30, then I'm setting the risk to low. So this is essentially how the solution works. I think it's very elegant that in Jira and JSM, we can use automation to, yes, create mathematical calculations. In this case, a very practical application is to use Jira Automation to calculate a numeric risk score and use that risk score to then automatically set the overall change risk. Thank you very much for having joined me on this video. Good luck in your Jira journey and hope to see you very soon on another video. Take care. Hello, my name is